Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another Sims 4 video on my channel. So today I have a smaller build for you guys, which was also a bit of a challenge because I built this on this 8x8 platform, which you can see here, which was fun, but it was also kind of difficult at certain points. For example, when I wanted to build the bathroom and there was just not enough space here, but I'm gonna talk about that later when we move on to the interior. So this house is inspired by typical Swedish vacation homes or Scandinavian vacation homes in general, and I decided to make it red just because this is the color that most people associate with Sweden and Swedish architecture, and therefore I decided to use this very nice bright red wooden siding here, which is from base game, and I found myself using this specific siding here a lot, especially for farmhouses or other rustic builds, just because it fits this specific aesthetic very well. As I said before, I wanted to make this build also a bit of a challenge for myself, and not only did I build it on this very small 8x8 platform here, I also tried to avoid using more than one pack. And because this is basically a cottage, I thought which pack would fit the overall aesthetic better than cottage living, and so I decided to use cottage living for this cottage here, which was actually the right choice in my opinion. And this is also what I like to do before I start building stuff. I try to consider which objects or wallpapers or flooring or other decorational objects I'm gonna need and which colors are available in the specific packs, and then I try to build with the packs that I picked beforehand. Personally, I really like doing one pack builds or also base game builds, as you probably know if you've seen other videos that I've uploaded to YouTube, just because it's sometimes a bit easier to build with just one pack, because at this point I have almost all packs that are currently available, and it's a bit overwhelming how many objects there are, and I still find myself discovering new objects, quote-unquote new objects, that I've never seen before or just ignored just because they were somewhat hidden somewhere in categories I don't usually use for my builds. And it's also quite dangerous to use the same objects over and over, and I try to avoid that, even though as you might know if you've seen other videos, of course, there are certain staples that I always use, like the two books from the clutter objects, or the books you could place on shelves. So what I'm trying to say here is that using just one pack can be easier for building and for the building process, because you don't have that many objects to choose from. But it can also be a bit more difficult, of course, because here I could have used the shower from university because it's just the best shower in the game, at least for building smaller constricted bathrooms, just because it's basically just wall mounted and you can fit it anywhere. And it was really tempting to just add this one additional pack here, but I felt like it would be cheating, and so I avoided it completely and found a different solution, which we'll see in a bit. By the way, I still have a bit of a cold at this point, so if I'm breathing too hard into your ears, I'm very sorry about that. So because of that, I also kind of postponed my upcoming video, which is the country mansion, which will be the next long video that I upload. And this is because I thought this video here would be much shorter and easier to do commentary on while I'm kind of feeling not that well. However, the video got a bit longer than I expected, and so here we are. And again, I hope it's not too bad for you guys to listen to. Anyway, back to the build. This got a lot more colorful than I thought it would be, just because I wanted to combine the red with, of course, some white, which is a nice contrast color here, especially for the columns, which serve as some kind of framing here, as I most of the time do with my builds, but I also wanted to add some colors that are a bit more bold, and so I decided to go for some blue, of course, which you can see here with the front door, and also some of the interior later on. Also tried to use as much blue as possible. For example, for the bicycle you can see in the front here, which is also a very nice object from Cottage Living. I like using it a lot. I wish there would be a base game bike of some kind, so we could use that one for decorating and of course for gameplay as well. But unfortunately I think it's just included in the Snowy Escape expansion, so you only get it there. And this one here, which is a bit rusty looking, which was basically perfect for this build, so I prefer this one here from Cottage Living. I think the bike is among my top 5 objects that are currently in the game, just because it adds a lot of character to every build basically where you use it. And I don't know if you guys have some kind of favorite objects that you find yourself using a lot while building, but if you have one, let me know in the comments below. I'm always interested in what you have to say. So at this point I was trying to add some additional detail to the house by kind of modifying the roof with this. I'm not even sure what I'm gonna call this. It's not really a skylight or anything, but I put an additional window up there. And I did this because the house just looked kind of odd. It was so narrow, and I couldn't add a second story to it just because it looked awful. It's not like I didn't try, but it just looked so bad. So no second story here. But it was kind of strange because I built a different cottage, which was, I think I just called it the Off the Grid Cottage, which is a bit of a bland name to be honest. But this one had a second story and I think it was about the same size as this one, but it looked much better. I don't know why. However, for this one, no second story. I tried, but it looked so bad. But hey, I'm actually kind of glad that it didn't work out because I really like the new aesthetic here. I made the roof a bit higher later on, but I actually really like the window up there. So those who know me are probably aware that I start furnishing when I'm almost done with the exterior, and this was a huge problem here just because I put the windows on these spots where they basically look very good from the outside, but they're very problematic for furnishing this house. I had to cut out so much of this video just because I couldn't figure out where to put anything, because the windows and the door were on 3 walls and this is just a 4x4 room, so it was so restricting, and I struggled for a while to figure out where to put the bathroom, and eventually I ended up putting the toilet and the bathtub outside just because there was no space whatsoever inside. And I initially planned on using this small shed here as a bathroom, but then I really liked the aesthetic of the shed with the open door, and so I decided to put the bathroom outside, which also kind of makes sense because this is just some kind of vacation home you would find in the countryside. Maybe it doesn't even have power or running water, and I just thought it would be fitting, but it wasn't the initial plan, as I said before. However, I really like the bathtub outside next to the well, and this had also another advantage, which was basically that I could furnish this room here much easier just because I didn't have to consider a bathroom here. And as I said before, I almost used the shower from a university just because it's so compact, you could fit it almost anywhere. And I didn't place an additional sink outside just because I think one sink inside is enough to wash your hands. I also don't think that this would be very realistic to have another sink outside, but I'm pretty sure that this house could exist in this configuration. Let me know in the comments below if you think I'm wrong. So at this point, the color scheme inside at least was all over the place. As I said before, this house was supposed to be a bit more colorful, but I was adding so many different colors to it. There was yellow, blue, red, white, which basically works with every other color, but it was just a bit too much. And then I started using different wood tones. As you can see here, the bed and the shelf were very dark, but the kitchen was completely in white and yellow and with a green fridge, and it was just too much. So I ended up removing and recoloring, so to speak, certain objects in here to make it a bit less loud, so to speak, and give it a more quiet, cozy appeal. I'm pretty happy how it turned out, but let me know in the comments below if you have a different opinion. I always appreciate feedback, and as I said before, I always like to hear your thoughts on different matters. So at this point, the build was basically almost finished. I was just shifting around some of the objects that I've prepared before, and I was just trying to figure out where they made the most sense and where they would look the best. So as you can see here, for example, those aprons, I couldn't really find a place where to put them. I still think they shouldn't be next to the stove, but there was not really any wall space anywhere else to put them, so I just kept them there. So I have to say that I really like this fridge here, and what I also like to do is use the space on the fridge to place some decorations, like the camera here and those, I'm not sure what they are, jars maybe, and this oil lamp here, just because it always looks so empty up there. You can always use some kind of cabinet to frame the fridge, but for me, I think this only works for more modern kitchens, or if you have some cabinets, which I didn't put here. Also, the table you can see inside gave me a headache just because I wanted to use 2 chairs, and when I tried to fit the bathroom inside, it was an absolute nightmare because, as I said before, the windows were always in the way. I had to place the bed somewhere, and the beds they have an awkward length. They are like 2.5 tiles long, and so they don't really fit anywhere. And I've seen compact builds where people have just shoved them into the wall to get rid of like a third of the bed, and this works, so you can still use the bed and you just have to cover up the part of the bed that is poking through the wall. However, it still looks odd, which is the reason why I would try to avoid this if I not absolutely have to save some space. But here it worked out, and it also kind of makes sense that the stove is there in front of the bed, because this could also serve as some kind of heat source to keep the place warm, which I imagine would be very nice and cozy to have it at your feet while sleeping. I was just glad that the bathroom was now outside, because the room looks so much nicer without the bathroom in there. So at this point the build was basically finished. I did some minor adjustments later on to make sure that this is usable. So this build is also play tested, so in case you want to download it, I'm gonna put my gallery ID in the description below as always. I'm also gonna put the lot in the description I built this on in case you want to play it there. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you are not already subscribed to the channel. See you guys next time. Peace out.